What is up, YouTube? If you read the title of the video and you think it's clickbait, well, surprise, it's not. This is what I've been doing for the past few weeks to try to improve and learn about other players and their tendencies and styles and equipment sets to, try to find the best style or play style for myself. And I want to share that with you today, right? So I'm not going to waste any time because this is going to be quite a long video. So if you do enjoy this, please drop a like and comment below to help me with the algorithm. And let's just jump straight into it. So one of the greatest updates that I personally think Smilegate has released in recent times, and no, it's not, the Espa collab with Rocket Punch or, any other collaboration for that matter, right? But this is more so about the Epic 7 Match History plugin or tool or however you want to call it. Now, before I even start talking about the tool, I want to just show you quickly here how you even get there. You want to go to the envelope where you collect your daily energy, and you can go to the Match History button right here. Now, if you click on this, it's going to click on open another browser in your emulator, whether it's Mumu Player or LD Player or BlueStacks, whatever. It's going to populate a browser. I personally like just copying this and then throwing this open into my browser so that it's a little bit easier to view. But realistically, if you're on your phone, whatever works for you. But the main thing I want to make this video, and first of all, I just want to say thank you to Valky for letting me use kind of this idea overall, because this actually happened near the end of the season where we were making our final pushes and he did a huge write-up on different play styles, different players you can look up, and I never really used this tool very much. I just kind of figured, just figure out my drafting, where my mistakes are, and trying to go from there. But during the off season, I feel like personally I've improved a lot. Whether we actually did or not, we're gonna find out when the season starts. But just being able to take a look and see, how all the other players are drafting, why they make certain pre-bans, how come in some situation they're doing different pre-bans when they're first pick versus second pick, and even just different equipment set choices, not just for the players themselves, but in certain tiers, right? Even in Legend, for example, right? Having a protection set, immunity set, Bellion was something that was almost unheard of in Champion, even Emperor, until the latter part of the season, right? And all of this information is accessible now on E7gg, and I think this is a tool that we should all be utilizing. And yeah, I'm gonna jump straight into it and go over some profiles and kind of share with you how I view it, how I use it, and so that you guys can, maybe, do it yourself. Maybe you guys can improve as well because the season's starting. And yeah, so let's just jump straight into the first profile, and it's gonna be no other than December. So let's talk about December. He plays an extremely gear gap style that is almost in a league of his own, right? I've heard that he runs a 311 bunny dom. I don't know if that's actually true, but if that is, that just allows him to play this super flex aggro, just demon style, I would call it, right? Now, even without his gear gap, let's just analyze a few things about him and what I've noticed, right? Number one, he pre-bans Abyssal Euphine and Candy. And why is that the case? Now, I assume, I cannot know for sure because I'm not December, but I would assume, based off my reviewing, this is so that he can play a more honest game, because without having to, win or lose to RNG, this kind of reduces the amount of tilt that you might fall into, right? Like, how tilting is it sometimes when with that Candy dual attacks or counters and salvos over and over and over, and your mental just breaks, right? Instead, December would rather piggyback off his gear and knowledge to win a more honest game, so he doesn't have to rely or lose to RNG, which is very fair. I think it's definitely good for the mental, especially if you're going to be grinding games a lot, right? And I think number two, he checkmates the enemy at picks 3 to 5 due to his large roster and his ability to counter pick. Now, if we look at his first example here, the opponent goes first pick Stene, he responds with Bunny Dom DDR. The opponent is tanking down, playing more of a KHM style. They're going with Stina Carmen. Now, he responds immediately, Bryceria and Operator Sigrid. And a lot of times people may be thinking, damn, that Operator Sigrid's it's really greedy. What if the Carmen's not on prod set? 99.9% of players have Carmen on prod set. That's just the default, right? KHM, I don't know if he's the one that made it, but that's what's the most popular. So obviously it's going to be a checkmate pick, right? Operator Circuit, and you can see it gets banned out right now. This guy goes with Dilibet and he goes to Lone Crescent Bologna. I personally think he might have mispicked because DDR can just hold S3. Bryceria can also has the option of holding technically, and then A like a last pick, and then the guy's just checkmate. There's really nothing he can do. There's no last two picks that he can pick that can win him, that can turn the game around. It's just done, right? All right, now let's look at the second one, right? Second example. He goes Bunny Dom first pick. They respond with AOL Valiant. Okay, and then he still goes Stene, Destina into that. And I personally thought that was crazy. Like, I thought this was really insane by him, because in what world does anybody take Stene into Valiant if you're not on a lifesteal build that is anti-Valiant, right? But we can see the opponent responds with Briarwitch and LRK, and then what did he respond with? He responds with Strays and Gala. Like, that is just genius, because he's gambling that A, this AOL is not faster than his Bunny Dom, B, that Gala and that Strays is going to kill something, right? And it's either going to be killing Crow, or it's either going to be killing Valiant. Either way, one of those units are going to die, and then they're immediately going to be playing 3v4, right? They're going to be playing 3v4 out the gate, and they don't have a way of really addressing the Destina. So even though they do have some AoE, they do have the Briar to counter the revive, they just lose so much tempo when playing 3v4 from behind. Like, unless you can trade another unit 1-for-1 right away in response, it's almost over immediately. So he's checkmating on that 4-5 really hard. One more example that we'll go with here is let's just go with the third one. Like, December is just so good. So Conquer Lilius first pick, he responds with Bunny Dom, Spectre Tenebria. Bunny Dom is going to counter Conquer Lilius, obviously. They respond with A-Taiwan and DDR. I really don't like the A-Taiwan DDR coming out from Xeon's 1X, but fine, we'll leave it as it is, okay? Immediately, you can see that because this opponent is taking a more neutral position, a more neutral draft, he immediately picks up the tempo, right? He goes Zeo, Ludwig. And obviously, Ludwig is going to be insane here because you already have 20, 40, 60 souls and an attack buffer. Now, obviously, I don't know how December gears his Zeo, but it could be a slow Zeo. Who knows? But probably not, right? But obviously, this is going to be the force ban, and then whatever Zion picks, Edward, he just gets the draft through. Ludwig is a force ban. Like, he's checkmated at 3-4, right? The fifth pick, he could have picked anything. Like, it would have gone through, and it would have been just GG. It's just checkmate. So, just a really insane. This guy is just so good, right? So good. And one final thing, and the last thing I will point out is what I've noticed from his tendencies. Okay, now it's not going to be that important because honestly, I'm not going to be fighting December very much. Like, well, that's a lie. I actually fought him like 6 times last season, but that's besides the point. He has a tendency to pick Bunny Dom, obviously, because he's a really fast one, but he always almost defaults to a B Dom Stene or a B Dom DDR if it's available. Unless the opponent is showing their hand extremely early, that is almost his always default opening in all his drafts, and that's kind of cool to see, right? Maybe not necessarily for December's case where it could be more beneficial for me, but if I ever do recognize maybe his profile card or something, I'll be able to kind of see it in advance, and then maybe I can give myself that enough time to think about it and see what I can pick if I know what they're going to pick in response. But hey, Big Boss December, hey, that's the GOAT, dude. But anyway, let's go to GOAT number 2, who's going to be Albamage. So let's go over there. All right, so it's Albamage. He's our GOAT. He's the community GOAT, right? That handsome motherfucker. But anyway, Albamage plays a little bit of everything. Well, that's kind of a lie. He plays a lot of Lua, but he has extremely good gear, as we all know. But he is also insanely good at pivoting his units. And actually, just pause. Right, he's gonna watch this on stream. And chat's gonna say I'm glazing him, but whatever. Just I'm glazing him, I guess. All right. A couple things to notice when I've been looking over his E7gg is that, number one, let's analyze his pre-ban, right? He pre-bans Bellion and Aiden. So obviously this is going to allow him to play Lua with a book holder with no restriction whatsoever. And because obviously Lua without a book is not the same unit. Not being able to guarantee that Soulburn S3 is pivotal for her to have the amount of impact that they need, right? For the skill reset and the damage from the Beguile. Or Beguile or whatever. Additionally, he also bans Aiden. So Aiden is just like a very unit to deal with for Cleavers, especially, or aggro players, with that 70% dodge chance, right? But I think LB has said it many times. I think we all know he just hates playing against it, so he pre-bans it. So it's just a preference thing. But the second thing I want to point out is this man loves Lua. All right, and he is so goddamn good at playing her too. Like, look at how he almost always carries a book on his Lua, whether it's Azio or AOL or Melissa or Stene or whatever, right? He almost always has a book pairing, so he can guarantee that Soulborn S3 with his fast Lua, so that the enemy can't play the game. And I don't know. Let's just take a random pick. Okay, let's just look at this one for example. Okay, so he takes Lua first pick, and then they go with Sea Lily's Airwell. He responds with Bunny Dom AOL, because Bunny Dom's going to address the Conquer Lily's first pick, and then the AOL is going to cover all the buffs that they're going to be receiving, right? Airwell provides barriers, he has the Escort, just a really annoying unit to deal with. But if you put that unbuffable on, that silence, he can't press S3, that really cripples him, right? And the same thing goes for something like an LRK, for example. Now, the opponent addresses with Candy and addresses with Mediator Coeric, so he's going with a pretty neutral DPS that's decent into the first 3 picks, which I think is pretty good. And then he takes Hand Guy, who's going to be a cleanser into the AOL. Now, I don't love the Hand Guy pick, but immediately Elvamage responds with Lone Crescent Bologna and Gala. He's basically saying, okay, so you took a neutral DPS, you took a cleanser that I could reset with Lua. Guess what? I'm gonna run LCB that can counter your Candy, and the Gala is gonna one-shot your Hand Guy. And he's basically playing the ban last. The best players on the ladder almost always draft the ban last. And unfortunately, this guy decides to pick an ER Celine, which is fucking useless in my opinion, no offense. So he just goes ahead and bans the Airwell, he bans the mitigation so that he can just freely kill a Candy, and that's exactly what happens here, right? So perfect game from Elvamage, just checkmating here from draft in terms of flex picking, right? Now, let's just look at the next game. All right, let's look at maybe not this one. This one looks pretty bad. Let's look at the second one. All right, so he goes Lua first pick. They go with AOL and Knockwall. He responds with Bunny Dom DDR. Bunny Dom's always going to address the Knockwall. DDR is going to just provide a lot of tempo for the rest of the team because Lua provides the speed buff. He gives 20 CR for the entire team. He can sleep the Knockwall. There's a lot of things that he can do. Now, the opponent's going to respond with Candy and Emilia. Personally, I don't love this pick because, again, it's a neutral DPS into his team with Emilia as like a cleanser. But what if the DDR is actually able to land on you, right? You're going to get skill reset as well. It's really hard to play. But as you can see, he takes Stene here, and then he responds with LCB and Inferno. So, again, from what we can see, they're playing. Elvamage is playing the ban last. He bans the Stene out. He takes 2 units that can address with the Candy, and then just ban whatever they pick, right? Because if you already have 2 solutions to the Candy, you're good to go. And as you can see, he wins the game because he has 2 fucking characters that can AoE. Eventually, a proxy Inferno. You drop S3, Candy dies, it's GG, right? Another really solid draft from the GOAT. But yeah, those are just, there's not a lot of other Lua games like okay, I see Champ Z. I was about to end his clip, but I see Champ Z, so we gotta look at it. Okay, so he goes Lua first pick into Peyrazio, and then he goes Peyrazio into Fiend Christie. Okay, I see. So he goes Christie because obviously that's going to be anti-Zeo, and then Fiend is anti-cleave unit, which makes a lot of sense because obviously Peyra S2 that can trigger 40 fighting spirit, right? You hit her, she can counter, she can attack down the entire team. It's pretty good because this is a cleave opening, right? This is a very aggressive opening. Then they respond with Summertime Assyria and Blue Analytica. So Elvamage is the GOAT, man. Holiday Euphine she is on Guide of Decision, so she has that chance to dodge and then CR push and then push up the team. And then Shamsi obviously just debuff Kingdom, right? Peyra debuff, Summertime Assyria debuff, Blue Analytica debuff, everything debuffs, right? So just is a really solid pick. I can't believe this guy. He, like, you see what I mean? Like when I say he is so good at pivoting his units. Who has Champ Z geared in 2024? Who? This guy does, but I mean it's on speed set, so yeah, I don't know what this guy. Dude, Elvamage, if you watch this on stream, I want to see that Champ Z. Right? I want someone to clip it and ship it to me because I'm very curious what this Champ Z looks like. But anyways, those are just a few. Those are 2 things that I'll point out about Elvamage, and let us move over to the next person, who's going to be one and only Wonder Child, the Golden Child, AB. All right, so we're at AB, and honestly, AB is one of those players where you have to cherish when they're still around. I know he previously had, quit for a little bit, but this might just be my opinion, but I feel like out of all the streamers that I do watch, I feel like I learn the most when I'm watching him. And this is realist, like on my life. This is not me trying to glaze him or get brownie points, but it might. I don't know if it's just maybe because he doesn't have any camera, so I'm not really paying attention to his face. Or maybe if it's just his methodical approach to the game, where he kind of has the ability to outgear you, outdraft you at any moment, but he plays a very honest style, which is somewhat similar to IOMEGAI, as we can see in the match history. But there are a few things I do want to point out before we kind of jump into his history here. So AB actually pre-bans Zeo, which indicates that he has really high speed on his character, so that he can abuse his speed to beat down slower players and really just run them over. Right now, we all know, because we've seen his stats and there's been imager albums, there's been the streams, that it confirms it. He does have really high speed, and if you are planning on pre-banning Zeo, I personally am not, because I'm not that fast, but if you have a really high speed on a lot of your characters, that is an option that you can consider. And the second pre-ban that AB does go for is AOL. Now, this is a little bit of a surprise to me, because towards the latter part of last season, he was playing a bunch of AOL to counter knockwall and DDR. So seeing him just completely shift off those pre-bans that he was at the end of the season is a bit of a shocker to me. But it does make sense, I guess, in some sense, because AOL has been historically just extremely strong and oppressive in every single draft, right? Whether you're a cleaver or you are a aggro or tank down player, AOL is really going to shut you down, because it really forces you to address her with Apollotus or some type of cleanse with Handguy or Destina or just whatever, right? And there's so many different builds that you can go for, whether it's 300 or 300 effectiveness or 300 speed. You just never really know what you're going to be getting into against an AOL. So she's just a very neutral ban, which just kind of improves the overall game quality, right? Now, AB, from what I can see, is able to play any style. Now, unfortunately, E7gg has a limited history, but based on his history, he does play a bunch of Lua, as you guys can see, which is very similar to the style that we've already covered, being Elven Mage, right? Because obviously, it's a very good style. You have high speed Lua. It's very strong, right? But one thing that I actually noticed about AB and not Elven Mage is he has a really heavy emphasis on playing LRK. It almost seems like in all of his games he's picking LRK, right? And I don't really want to cover so much of the Lua drafts, but I want to cover the LRK picks. So historically, I've always been told that you don't really want to show a tank super early on, because if you do, your chances are you're going to get run down, right? Because it's not very good into cleavers. And when I look at his draft, let's just say this one, for example, against Chari here. So the enemy first picks Lua, and he responds with LRK Leica. Now, as you can see in the equipment says, it's not a protection set LRK. It's not a protection set Briar, or not a protection set Leica as some type of troll, right? Or answer in response into Lua. So he almost just lets the opponent have it. So what he does is he actually has Bastion of Perlucia to provide shield and immunity to the back unit, along with the front holder. So it seems like I'm not sure if this is accurate in terms of how these units are placed, but I would assume not, because he already has immunity on the Briar, but he needs to have barrier so that she has the S3 ability. So I'm assuming maybe the Briar is swapped over, but it seems like he doesn't address the Lua picks with having protection set. He just goes for the artifact, which is relatively honest, and he doesn't die as fast because he's not going to be tanking Aureus. So you're supposed to Lua 1-2 is Leica plus LRK. Opponent response Carmen, Destina. Very weird. Japan players do pick very awkwardly, but sure, I'll leave it at that. So AB goes for a more neutral DPS in the sense where it's Candy, and he goes for Kawaric. Now, I think Kawaric is one of those pocket picks where if you're looking to reset a unit, whether it be Destina or if it's Crimson Armin or whatever it might be, where there's a unit that requires a really important first turn, he really shines with having the ability to soul burn S2, and it can reset a unit, right? Now, the opponent in response goes with LCP and ML Ken. Now, the last pick that AB goes for is Bryceria. Now, I personally feel like if I was playing this draft, I might have went Bryceria in plus a book here instead. I'll never really know why he went for a neutral DPS like Candy over Briar here to address the Destina. But upon looking at the history, perhaps he's just thinking neutral DPS plus a soul burn plus something to reset. Then he doesn't want to draft Candy on 5, because if he does, it just gets force banned. They can just get whatever through against his top 4, and obviously he's gonna be put into a really bad position from that point. But I guess I can see why he lost too, because if he did go Briar on 3 plus one more neutral DPS, maybe he had some better odds. I don't really know about the Queric. the Leica, it surprises me. I'm not sure what is the... I'm not really sure what this is. Like, maybe it's a really fast Leica that dual attacks Candy, but the S3 is essentially useless against the rest of this team, so I'm not really sure. But hey, maybe AB, if he ever does come across this video, he'll be able to tell me what the rationale was of this draft. Maybe it's just a bad draft, I'm not sure. But let's take a look at another draft where he's going LRK first, where he's in the next match here. We can see opponent goes with first pick Conquer Lilius, and then he responds with LRK and Bunny Dom. Bunny Dom obviously is going to address the Conquer Lilius first pick, and then the LRK is going to be, you know, relatively standard tank. Now, I guess it's not that bad, because, you know, if he's addressing the Conquer Lilius pick with B-Dom, he is still okay to protect his LRK, and AOL is pre-banned, so obviously LRK is free. So there's the Candy, and then there is the Airwell. So he immediately responds with DDR and Lone Crest of Bologna. So Lone Crest of Bologna, it makes sense because we already have AoE from LRK. We're going to get AoE and guaranteed damage to address the anti-crit from the LCB into the Candy. And then the DDR is going to provide us a lot of tempo. So if they do potentially ban Bunny Dom or whatever the case may be, you have the option to S3, strip escort, strip barriers, potentially immunity, put 20% CR, and provide the detonate damage and the venom for your LRK. So it definitely is a very strong pick here, so I can see why he went for that. And you can see that he does go for a speed effectiveness set, which tells us that it's probably like really high effectiveness to really strip these units coming through, or maybe it's 150, who knows. But I'm gonna assume anyone that runs an effectiveness set probably has some pretty decent effectiveness. Now the opponent here responds with Dragon King Sharoon and Aiden. So Dragon King Sharoon is the newest counter to DDR. Now I don't necessarily think it does, because you can still just press S2, you can hold S3 until after her first turn goes, and it's just a goner, right? Now Aiden has pretty good response into LCB, so what he went for is actually Bihu. I am shocked. I'm shocked that he went for Bihu. And the reason I'm shocked is because I really thought if I was him, if I played the same draft, I probably would have went with Shadow Knight Pillis. Because if you have Shadow Knight Pillis with DDR, with the Venom damage, with all the tempo that you're getting and the soul generation you're getting from LRK, from LCB, from everybody else in the draft, he's able to counter that Candy really well. He addresses that Aiden pick really well. And obviously any dual attacks or counters or additional attacks coming through onto the Pillis or into the enemy team, it's just negated and it's nullified, and it helps a lot, right? So I personally think maybe it's just a pocket pick of his where he likes to play the Bihu, or maybe it's just because it's preseason, but I really think maybe Pillis would have been okay there. But Bihu, I guess it does make sense too if you are able to land the burns and you have enough effectiveness. But me personally, I take Big P there all day. Now let's take a look at another match where he goes LRK first pick here. That looks a little bit different. Now, it looks like he goes... So he's going to fight against Alito here. By the way, Alito, congratulations for first time making Legend. So, congratulations. So, opponent goes for a Bunny Dom first pick here. AB is going to respond with LRK and Lua. Pretty reasonable opening. He responds with Bellion plus Stene. So, as we mentioned in our review earlier on with Elven Mage, pre-banning the Bellion so that you can, abuse the books. As you can see, if they pick the Lua, a pretty decent response from yourself or anyone that's playing against Lua. You can take a Bellion early on, right? Whether you have it on protection immunity or you actually have it on damage, that's kind of up to you, right? But you just want to have the ability to deny the Lua from being able to soul burn, and that's immediately going to be huge, right? Now, AB notices that he goes with Bellion and Stene. There's not really a lot of synergy here, right? So this is also quite susceptible to cleave or just like a high tempo aggro. So what he goes for, he's going to take the Koeric, which is going to be the book holder, and then he's also going to take Sylvian Sage Vivian. Now, I think the Koeric really is just AB's pocket pick, and Sylvian Sage is going to address the Stene amazingly because she can't really die when she has the focus with her passive. And the Koeric here, I think, is really just a pocket pick. You can Soulburn S2 to reset a unit. I think that's probably what he's going for. And then the opponent Alito responds with Solitary and Shu. So this is a pretty rounded out draft because the Bunny Dom is still going to address a Lua or any extra turn coming in from Ran. If it is protection set and it has enough immunity and everything, you know, maybe it can resist, maybe not, I don't know. But looking based off Alito's draft here, I'm honestly quite surprised that he won. He's Doctor's Bag, he's not Soul Consolation. If Ran's S2, Soulburn S3, Koeric S3, I feel like everything should have died. I feel like I don't know. I'm really surprised that Alito won this one. Perhaps he'll be able to share how he won this, but I really thought that if Ran S2, Soulburn S3, the bans Bellion, everything's Death Broken stripped because he has only 2 buffs, and then Koeric drops an S3. Unless the Bunny Dom would cut in between those 2 units, then that could be why he lost. But otherwise, I think his draft was pretty strong. If the Koeric S3 when they're all Death Broken, would have been okay. But yeah, anyway, it's very interesting to see how AB plays LRK, because LRK for me, as I've always played it in a way where I'm kind of, he's just my mitigation, and then I take all the other units to address the opponent's draft. But the way that he picks it, it kind of just looks like he just defaults it. Like, man. Excuse me. There's LRK, 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 LRK. He really likes this LRK. It really seems like if it's not pick or ban, he is taking it every time. Which might be something that we could consider doing in our playstyle, honestly, because that's it shows that his win rate is relatively high. Like his LRK win rate, if I can find it. Okay, maybe I can't find it. I won't be able to find his LRK win rate. Actually, can I? Let me see. LRK win rate. No, we cannot, unfortunately. But I mean, just looking off these games alone, his LRK win rate should be pretty high. I'd say it's at least 65%. But yeah, I think the main takeaway here is the ability to pivot. With LRK being a relatively bad first pick from AB, is very impressive, right? Whether he takes the Lua or he pivots this into an aggro draft, or he just plays, you know, relatively honest, right? He's like, look at this, he's just addressing the draft. Harrison is looking to cleave him here, and he plays an honest draft. He addresses the enemy draft. He's like, okay, you know what? I have to give it up. Like I can't, you know, I can't force my way, so I'm just gonna let him cleave me, and then I'm gonna address this draft with the rest of the picks. So yeah, very good player. Very good player. A lot to learn here, but let me move over to my closing thoughts, and yeah, enough yapping. Alright, so that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. It's very different compared to what I'm used to doing, but I just want to kind of share with you guys a few players that I've been paying attention to on the E7gg match history, and I will be doing more videos like this in the future because we didn't even go into covering standard players or tank down players, and I really think they deserve that type of recognition as well. And so let me know in the comments below if you guys want me to continue making this type of content, or if you think that, you know, this is not really that useful and I'm just yapping. You can also let me know that as well. I think there's a lot of room for improvement since this is the first video that I'm kind of doing in this style. I do want to say a special thank you to Valky and Lunale. I'm gonna put a little document in front of you right here. Lunale really helped me with understanding the prebans, and I feel like without him, I think I wouldn't really have a better understanding of prebans. So he really helped me out. So thank you very much, Lunale. I really appreciate it. But as you can see in front of you here, the Bellion preban is a signifier or identifier for Lua and aggro players. So if you are planning to play a really fast Lua, you have a really good speed set like 310 Lua or something, you can consider playing like Alpha Mage. If you go for a Zeo preban, that's going to be cleave aggro players with really fast units that can abuse their speed and really just impose their will on the opponent, right? And that's going to be people like AB, not so much like December, but mainly in AB that we did cover in this video, where they have, maybe like a 315, 318, 320 Rand, 310 Lilius, right? Aiden pre-ban is more so a preference ban or a cleave ban. It is very it's draft dependent on Yuffie, LCB, Emilken, because she is one of those units that has the capability to really one shot one of those units, especially with Destro Pen and Sword of Cycling Season. So that's definitely a unit you can consider banning if you have drafts that are very heavily dependent on a hyper carry like that. Lua pre-ban is mainly just for flex players or players who lack solutions dedicated to her. So things like a protection and immunity set, or maybe you don't have an Ancient Dragon Legacy on Lilius, or maybe you unluckily don't have a Bastion of Perlucia. Just some things to think about, right? Like if you have these weaknesses in missing certain units or missing certain artifacts, especially as a player that's maybe coming from silver, gold, master, challenger, these are things that you can consider when you're deciding on a pre-ban. Now, Candy and Yuffie pre-ban are basically the same thing. They're mainly just there so you don't tilt, right? Because you could, like I said in the video, right, you can either win by RNG or you can lose by RNG. And December clearly plays that style, right, where he doesn't want to win by Candy, he doesn't want to win by any counterattacks or salvos or Elbrus or whatever. He just wants to play an honest style where he's gonna be able to just maintain a consistent level all the way through. And you can see that he's the fucking GOAT. He's rank 1, so clearly it works, right? But it really requires a really big gear pool, so it's very specific. DDR pre-ban is mostly to maintain your sanity, as well as, Smilegate literally released ML Sharoon and it still doesn't stop him. He just presses S2 and it doesn't even matter. So he just provides so much tempo, and if you have a lot of trouble fighting against DDR, maybe you're someone that doesn't have VDOM, or someone that doesn't have really good ER gear, or you don't have a way to pivot to fight against DDR, it is definitely a very decent pre-ban to consider. And these three on the bottom, Braceria, Knockwall, and AL, are basically the same. They are extreme punishers to punish tank down comps, tank down players like KHM, for example, right? AOL can be 300 effectiveness, so it can land on any healer in the game. Monk can Soulburn S3, it can seal you, it can bind you, you can't counter, it just completely shuts down. It shuts down the entire style of counter players and Banshee players, right? And Braceria, it completely shits on revive units, and it's just, or any teams that rely heavily on buffs, things like Arrow with the escort, or even LRK having the shield every turn. Like, these are things that or even Guiding Lights, or just, she's a Guiding Light holder as anti-Zeo. Like, she has a lot of synergy with a lot of different comps. So you can see that, yeah, hopefully this little infograph kind of helps with you deciding which pre-ban you want to go for. Personally, I'm going to be experimenting a lot throughout the first part of the season to decide what's really the best for me. And then we'll kind of take it from there. Right. But anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy. I did yap quite a bit, so please let me know what you think in the comments below, and drop a like and comment if you enjoyed, and I'll leave you guys alone. So yeah, see you guys on the stream. Bye.